Welcome to the video lecture on vector logical clock for distributed system. In the previous video, Lamport's logical clock was explained with limitations. There are few limitations such as Lamport's logical clock cannot establish the concurrent relationship between events. In order to overcome that limitation, vector clock was introduced. The vector clock, as like Lamport's logical clock, is a numerical counter of value, but here there is a vector value maintained, right? Whereas in Lamport's clock, the value was a scalar value, but here this is a vector value, right? And this vector clock protocol was proposed by Fitch and Matten, and as I said already, it overcomes the limitation of Lamport's clock. Here in vector clock, the order of event is defining thereof by relation as usual in Lamport clock, where there are n number of processes is considered here in a distributed system, and each process having its own set of events and also associated with the clock Ci, right, which is an integer vector of length n, right? So if there are three processes, there are three processes P1, P2, P3, then the length of the vector is 3, right? So one for P1 and another second digit represents P2, third is representing P3, right? If there are a more number of processes, for example, there are 5 processes, then the length of the vector will be 5, right? Each corresponds to every process. And the clock Ci can be thought of as a function that assign a vector Ci to any event A. And the clock of A is referred as timestamp of event A at process Pi. This is the clock vector what is represented as a time value in every process could be also referred as timestamp of an event which happens at Pi. And as I already mentioned, this the fifth point refers to every ith entry corresponds to the process Pi. For example, the first entry corresponds to process P1, second entry corresponds to process P2, and so on. Okay? So let's come to the algorithm. Here the algorithm is very much when there are two conditions which has been discussed in Lamport clock is also continues here. One is the case where both the events belongs to same process, and another case is the events belongs to different processes, right? And for implementation rule 1 covers the condition 1. That means the events are successive events in particular process Pi. Two events are successive in process Pi. In such a case, as usual, what we did in Lamport's clock, we just increment, that is, there are two events A and B, both belongs to process Pi. Okay, if A happened before B, then the B's clock, that is Ci of B, will be always Ci of A plus D as usual, right? And the rule 2 says, the implementation rule 2 says, if events are belonging to different processes, if A is the event belongs to Pi and sends a message M to another event B which belongs to Pj, right? So A event is sending the message M from process Pi, right? Then the sending event is going to be assigned a vector timestamp. Always the message will be assigned with a timestamp, which is the A's clock value, K's vector value, right? On receiving the same message by process Pi, Pj is updated based upon the maximum value of its own previous event or the one timestamp which is received at that moment, right? So maximum of Cj of k, comma Tm of k. Okay, let's understand the implementation in detail with an example. So this is the example where the space-time diagram is given. Okay, so in x-axis, as usual, there is time, and in the y-axis, space is there. Here, there are three processes: P1, P2, and P3. Right? So P1 having its own three events: E11, E12, and E13. P2 similarly having four events: E21 till E24. And P3 having only two events: E31 and 32. And you look at, there is a message communication indicated in red line, where process E12 of P1 sending a message M to process event E22 of process P2. Similarly, E31 sends a message to E23 and E24 sends a message to E13. So when E12 sends a message, E12 becomes the sender, E22 becomes receiver. Similarly, E31 is sender, E23 is receiver. E24 is sender, E13 is receiver. Okay, now come to the point. In order to assign a vector timestamp to every event here, first, as usual, as I already mentioned in the algorithm, every vector is going to be a timestamp of n number of digits, n number of values, which is equal to the number of processes involved in the distributed system. Here there are three number of processes, so a vector timestamp will be having three components: P1, three elements, P2, P3. So first element represents process P1, second element represents process P2, and third element represents process P3. Now, since E11 is the first process, here also let's assume D is equal to 1. Here E11 is the first event of process P1. There is none other events before P1, E11. So this takes the initial timestamp value. Here, on filling up the value for the elements, here because E11 belongs to P1, here you have to put 1. The rest of the places should be 0 because the E11 is not the process of P2 or P3. Right? Now, when calculating the timestamp of vector of E12, as usual, we have to take the rule. Now, E12 is a successive event of E11 belonging to the same process P1. So, IR rule 1 is applied. IR1 is applied here. Implementation rule 1. Implementation rule 1 says what? Actually, you have to advance the element of the particular ith process by D value, isn't so, right? So whatever I'll be writing here, E12 can be calculated by the IR rule 1, IR1. Here E11 happened before E12. So E12 clock is equal to clock of E11 plus D. So that here the clock of E11 is 100. When you add 1 here, you should add to the corresponding element. So when you add it like this, 200, the clock vector becomes 200. So such a way, here we have to add the 1 with the P1's position. So 1 plus 1 is 2, comma 0, comma 0. You can put 0 for separation, right? Now, in order to calculate E13's vector, we cannot do like that as it is we done for E12. But because this is a message receiving event, so let's come to the P2 first, right? So P2, here E21 is the first event. As usual, this is, we can initiate timestamp for E21, like here for P1 position should be 0 and P2 it should be 1 because E21 is the event of P2. So P2 element should be filled up. And here E22, coming to E22. E22 is a message receiving event. It's a receiver. So that what you have to do, you have to, here the timestamp comes, right? If you take this time based on this timestamp, it becomes, now when comes here, this become 0, 2, 0, right? If you consider E22 based upon its successive even E21, right? It is timestamp should be 0, 2, 0. But there is an incoming message. The incoming message carries the timestamp T2, 0, 0, because 2, 0, 0 is the timestamp of the sending event. So Tm is equal to 2, 0, 0. Now at this moment you have to take up the maximum of these two. So I'm writing here, you have to apply IR2 for calculating the time vector for E22. So E22 equal to the maximum of either 2, 0, 0, which is the timestamp Tm, or the clock of E21 incremented. Okay, 0, 2, 0. Now you have to take up the maximum of every element. 2 and 0, which is maximum 2, and 0 and 2, which is maximum 2, and 0 and 0, 0 is maximum. So the timestamp is 2, 2 and 0. Okay. Similarly, while calculating E23, we should consider E31, because E23 is a message receiving event from E231. Here E31 is the first process of P3. As usual, you can initialize. So you put 0 for P1, P2 positions and 1 for P3. Now, either E31 send a message M with the timestamp 001. Otherwise, you have to take up the maximum of this Tm, and 220 while coming over here, it is incremented. 2, 3, 0. Right? Because P2 portion should increment plus D potukanum. Right? So 2, 3, 0. So amongst these two, we have to find which one is maximum. Amongst 0 and 2, 2 is maximum. 0 and 3, 3 is maximum. 0 and 1, 1 is maximum. So the time vector for E23 is 2, 3, 1. Okay, which is the maximum of, right? So E22 maximum of 001, 230. So every time you should remember the timestamp is not going to be incremented when the message comes. Okay, the Tm is not going to be incremented, but when the previous event on the same process, time position is incremented. Here it is 2, now increment 3. Adhe madri, here it is 1, incremented as 2. Right? So this you should not forget. And coming to E24, it is simply taking this previous timestamp, right? Because it is not an incoming receiver event, so that it may be, it's as per the rule 1, E24 is calculated. So E24 here, second process, it belongs to the second process. So 3 should be incremented as 4 and other is kept 1. Now go and calculate E13 now. So here E13, with reference to E12, the timestamp, incremented timestamp is 3, 0, 0. Now these two things to be compared. These two things should be compared. So here the time stamp received from the E24 is 2, 4, 1. So the 2, 4, 1 should be compared to 3, 0, 0. So the maximum will be taken. So amongst 3 and 2, 3 is maximum. Amongst 0 and 4, 4 is maximum. And 0 and 1, 1 is maximum. So the timestamp vector for E13 is 3, 4, 1. Now here, the only left out is E32, which is a individual event. So that E31 is updated here. So 0, 0, 2. Right? So this is how actually the vector clock functions. Right? So here you have to note one thing. The casual versus concurrent events are identified very easily because of the vector. If the you have to take up two vectors, V1 and V2. If vectors of v1 is the vector of event A and v2 is the vector of event B, then if we can say if and only if any element of v1 is less than or equal to v2, then A and B are casual events. If not, they are concurrent, right? So let's take v1, which is the vector of event A, is equals to timestamp is 3, 0, 0. And v2 here is 0, 2, 0. Now you can compare. If v1 is not less than, but v2, sorry, this p1 position of v1 is not less than v2, but p2 position is lesser, and also this is equal. So the majority of elements are less than or equal, so that A is casually affecting event. A affects B, right? So this is what casually affecting events. A can happen before B, we can take it such a way. Suppose your v1 is somewhat 3, 3, 2, and your v2 is somewhat 0, 2, 0. In this case, all the elements are greater, isn't so? All the elements of v1 are greater than v2. Now we can say v1 is concurrent. v1 is concurrent to v2, right? If it is greater, we can say concurrent events, right? The Lamport's limitation is overcome, right? So thank you for watching the video. Let's see in the next video. Thank you.